What if Stranger Things Season 4 was released early on in an alternate universe? What could it look like? Based on what we know so far, we're going to make an attempt to construct an episode based on some of the information we know of the season. So here we go, an alternate Episode 1 of Season 4 of Stranger Things. Episode 1, The Hellfire Club. Hopper's story. We see Hopper climbing down the ladder right before the big blast that closes the gate with the upside down and gets captured by the Russians in another room. Fast forward as several months pass. Hopper is working on a railway track in Russia. Hopper speaks to Dmitri in his cell, a Russian guard that meets with him occasionally to hear about the upside down. Hopper says there's nothing left to talk about, and if they want to finish him off, go ahead, he's done. Dmitri says Hopper doesn't understand. He has to continue this or his higher-ups will execute Hopper. Hopper asks why he cares. Dmitri says there are some things in this world you shouldn't open. Hopper asks what is he talking about. Dmitri tells him that prisoners aren't being fed to the dogs, but something much worse. Hopper says he doesn't care. Dmitri forcibly takes Hopper down a set of stairs, and Hopper is in shock when a prisoner is fed to a Demogorgon. Hopper says they closed the gate in Hawkins. Dmitri says many were already captured from Hawkins. When the gate was being opened, certain portals were opening up in Hawkins, which explains why the Russians own multiple properties in that town. Dmitri says he has a theory and believes his superiors are experimenting on these Demogorgons and may have found a way to actually breed them. Hopper's disgusted and asks if the Russians reopened the gate. Dmitri says he doesn't think so, but something is keeping them alive, and from what he's being told, he thinks Hopper has a way to stop it. Dmitri says he knows a way out that could get him back home and knows a smuggler named Yuri that could help him out, but only if Hopper takes him along. Hopper agrees and Dmitri says to be patient because it will take a bit of time to plan for an escape. Elle and Will's story. It's March 1986. Elle and Will are adjusting to their new life in Maine, living in the house that Bob Newby left behind for Joyce. Elle and Will become best friends, and we explore their relationship in the episode. Will is more into computers and comic books and met his friends in computer club. Elle still misses Mike, and they occasionally call each other. Will has made his own friends in high school while Elle is being picked on by some of the girls, though Will is overprotective of her. Will's friends invite him to a new comic book convention, and Will wants Elle to join him. Elle doesn't know much about comic books, but learns about Jean Grey from X-Men. Will wants her to costume up, although she doesn't have her powers anymore. Joyce, who is working at a major retailer as a manager, creates a costume for both Elle as Jean Grey and Will as Professor X. Joyce drops him off to the convention. During the convention, Elle gets a little lost from the crowd looking for Will till she sees Mike in the distance. Elle is shocked, till his face begins to melt to much horror. Elle shouts a scream for Mike that the windows burst in the convention hall, and everyone ducks as Will grabs her quickly and takes her away from everyone before enough people see her. Elle says she saw Mike. Will says that's not possible since Mike is back in Hawkins. Elle is frightened, not knowing what she saw, and is wondering if her powers are back. They leave the convention together. Nancy and Jonathan's story. Jonathan works at Surfer Boy Pizza with his new friend Argyle back in Maine. They're both stoners and are in Argyle's delivery van at night for a quick joint. Jonathan misses Nancy. Jonathan talks about how life sucks and wishes he could go see her. Argyle says he's had enough of Jonathan's whining about her for months on end and says they should just go to Hawkins to see her. Jonathan says he can't do that to his mom after all she's been through. Argyle tells Jonathan that he's old enough now to make his own decisions. Jonathan says whatever, and he dozes off in the van. Argyle starts laughing and drives off. In the morning, we see Jonathan waken in the van surprised. Argyle tells him they're off to Hawkins, and Jonathan gets angry. Argyle says not to worry till a tire blows out a few miles off of Buffalo, New York. Jonathan snaps and has to get to a phone. Argyle tells him he has a choice: go back or go see Nancy. Meanwhile, Nancy is now a reporter at Hawkins Post dealing mostly with missing people, those of course who were taken over by the Mind Flayer in Season 3. She heads out from the office for her next story. She meets with her friend, a Peter Ballard, an orderly at Hawkins Psychiatric Hospital, to get an exclusive interview with a Victor Creel, a murderer at the institution who killed a teenager in a gruesome way back in the 1950s and is about to be set free and cleared in less than a week. He's the talk about in town. She meets with Creel, who intimidates her at first. Creel says whatever happened in the 50s was in the past, and his new treatments have worked. Nancy argues that Creel wasn't insane, but knew exactly what he was doing and had a relationship with this teenager. Creel laughs and suddenly shouts at Nancy to get out. As she leaves, Creel takes out a newspaper ad of Hawkins' lab, where we learn he was one of the founders of the lab. Later, we see Peter watching how some of his co-workers are dragging a patient into Creel's room, and Creel beats the patient up. After Creel is done, he commands the co-workers to go do something for him, and they comply. Peter is horrified and runs off. The party's story. The Hellfire Club is an official D&D club at school headed by a metalhead known as Eddie Munson. Mike, Dustin, and Lucas join the club. We also get introduced to a Jason Carver, a wealthy rich sports star who is dating the most popular girl in school, that even Max talks a lot about him to Lucas. Lucas finds it really annoying. Jason bullies Eddie a lot in school. At the next club meeting on Friday after school, Eddie claims to have created the best D&D role-playing campaign ever. But it's not a campaign you play at a table. It's a campaign that can only be played physically throughout Hawkins. Dustin and Lucas are fascinated. Mike not so much and thinks it's stupid and wonders how could you roll a dice running around the whole town, though Lucas calls him jealous. Everyone gets a walkie-talkie, including other members of the club. The game begins right away, and Eddie will give them all clues to start it off as the game master. Max meets with the party on her bike to see Lucas and laughs at the game they're playing. Lucas and Dustin argue with her that they might be the first ones to finish the campaign since they know where to go next, and Mike says at least someone agrees with him that it sucks. Mike says he doesn't want to play anymore and leaves. Max joins Mike. Max and Mike talk about Elle and that they both miss her. It's a nice moment between the two. Later that night, Eddie is on his way home in the rain from his bike to get to his home radio so he can maintain a stronger signal with his friends till he accidentally falls into a ditch. As he gets back up, he notices a shadowy figure. A faceless man appears. It startles him. It strangely does nothing and walks away. Eddie is afraid, and instead of running home, he rushes into a nearby plaza where the video store is, bumping into Robin and Steve, who are closing shop. Eddie freaks out and tells him about a faceless man, as Steve and Robin glance at each other like, what? Steve and Robin's story. Steve and Robin work at the local video store. Steve is trying to memorize as much about movies as possible while their manager, Keith, tries to make the moves on Robin. And Robin keeps reminding him she's not interested for obvious reasons, but has her eye on someone else who comes into the store. Steve thinks he can be Robin's wingman, and she just finds that weird. We also meet with Robin's younger punk rock brother from high school hanging out in the store and wants to rent out a rated R movie. Robin is against it, but Steve hands it over to him anyway. Robin argues with him about it and says maybe Steve is missing his child friends, so now he's trying to be mommy to her brother. Steve says whatever. Dustin and Lucas enter the store and Steve is excited to see them, but they're too busy talking about their D&D game and having to find something in the video store to continue the campaign. Steve calls the game silly. They keep talking about Eddie and Steve looks a bit jealous. They head off to meet someone for the campaign. Eddie would bump into Steven and Robin at night. At the end of the episode, we get to see a middle-aged African-American man drive up to Hawkins. He steps out of his car and looks around and says, "So this is the home of the Mind Flayer." So this is where the episode ends, and it sets up so much and new characters that have already been announced for the show. Some of these new characters play a vital role. This season, we could imagine and find out what the Upside Down actually is. Perhaps it's related to the clock in the Season 4 teaser. Perhaps there's more to the Mind Flayer than we know. If you liked the story, would you like to see more episodes? Tell us below, like, subscribe, and thank you for watching.